I discovered the trash problem on a Tuesday morning in October when I was dragging my bins back from the curb after pickup, and I noticed something that made my blood run cold. My name is Xavier Summers, and I had been living in the Meadowbrook Hills subdivision in Scottsdale, Arizona, for exactly 8 months. The development was one of those picture-perfect communities with manicured lawns, matching mailboxes, and strict rules about everything from what color you could paint your front door to how tall your grass could grow. I had moved here from a cramped apartment in Phoenix, excited to finally own a home at 32 years old. The house was a modest 3-bedroom ranch with a small backyard, and I worked remotely as a software developer, which meant I was home most of the time. That Tuesday, as I wheeled my green waste bin back up my driveway, I noticed it felt heavier than usual. When I lifted the lid, my stomach dropped. On top of my regular trash bag sat 3 full bags of garbage that definitely were not mine. One had split open slightly, revealing used coffee filters, empty yogurt containers with a brand I never bought, and what looked like cat food cans. I did not own a cat. I stood there in the morning sun, confused and annoyed. Maybe the garbage truck had accidentally dumped someone else's trash into my bin. But that did not make sense. The bins were all separated when they sat at the curb, and the automated trucks just lifted and dumped each one individually. Someone had deliberately put their trash in my bin. I pulled out my phone and took a few photos, though I was not sure why at the time. Just seemed like the thing to do. Then I hauled the mystery bags out and set them aside in my garage, making a mental note to figure out what to do with them later. I had a deadline for a project at work, so I pushed the weird incident to the back of my mind and got on with my day. The following week, it happened again. This time I was more vigilant. After the trash pickup on Tuesday, I immediately checked my bins. Sure enough, there were 4 bags of trash that were not mine sitting in my waste bin. These bags contained similar items: paper towels with what looked like makeup stains, more cat food cans, empty wine bottles, and various food packaging I had never purchased. I was starting to get angry now. I decided to do some investigating. Our neighborhood had trash pickup every Tuesday morning at around 7. I worked from home, so I could easily keep an eye on things. The next Monday night, I set my alarm for 6 in the morning. When it went off, I made coffee and positioned myself at my front window with a clear view of my trash bins at the curb. The street was quiet, just a few early morning joggers passing by. At 6:45, I saw her. A woman in her late 40s with shoulder-length blonde hair pulled back in a tight ponytail came walking down the sidewalk carrying 2 plastic grocery bags bulging with trash. She wore yoga pants and a designer athletic jacket, the kind that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. She looked around quickly, then lifted the lid of my trash bin and dumped both bags inside. Then she walked away briskly, heading back toward the house 3 doors down from mine. I could not believe what I had just witnessed. This woman had deliberately used my trash bin as her personal dumping ground. I grabbed my phone and ran outside, but she was already too far away and moving fast. I took photos of my trash bin with the lid still open and the bags visible inside, along with a photo of her walking away, though it was just her back and not very clear. Back inside, I did what any modern homeowner would do. I pulled up the Meadowbrook Hills HOA directory online. I scrolled through the names and addresses until I found the house 3 doors down at 847 Saga Drive. The owner was listed as Karen Crawford. Of course her name was Karen. I almost laughed at the cliché of it all, but I was too irritated. I spent the next hour trying to figure out why someone would dump trash in a neighbor's bin. Our HOA fees included trash pickup, and each household was provided with adequate bins for waste, recycling, and green waste. There was no logical reason for this behavior, unless she was generating more trash than her bins could handle, which would be bizarre for what appeared to be a single-person household. I decided to confront her directly. I walked down to 847 Sagaro Drive around 9 in the morning, after I had calmed down enough to have a civil conversation. The house was a larger model than mine, with a pristine lawn and decorative cacti arranged artfully in the front yard. I rang the doorbell and waited. Karen Crawford opened the door wearing the same yoga outfit from earlier. Up close, I could see she had the kind of face that might have been pretty if it was not set in a permanent expression of displeasure. Her lips were pressed into a thin line, and her eyes narrowed when she saw me. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone suggesting she very much did not want to help me with anything. "Hi, I am Xavier Summers. I live 3 houses down at 823 Sagaro Drive," I said, trying to sound friendly. "I wanted to talk to you about something I noticed this morning." "Yes." She did not invite me in or even step aside from blocking the doorway. "I saw you put trash in my bins this morning," I said, deciding to be direct. "I am confused about why you would do that instead of using your own bins." Her expression did not change. "I have no idea what you are talking about." I blinked. "I watched you do it. At 6:45 this morning, you carried 2 bags of trash to my bins at the curb and dumped them in." "That was not me," she said flatly. "You must have seen someone else." "You are wearing the same outfit," I pointed out. "Lots of people wear yoga pants," she snapped. "I was inside my house all morning. I have not even taken my trash out yet. Maybe you should check with someone else before making false accusations." I felt my frustration building. "Look, I am not trying to start a fight. I just want you to use your own trash bins. That is all." "I did not use your trash bins," she repeated slowly, as if I were stupid. "Now, if you will excuse me, I have things to do." She closed the door in my face. I stood there for a moment, stunned by the blatant lie. I had literally watched her do it. I had photos. What kind of person denies something so obvious? I walked back to my house, now more annoyed than before. If she wanted to play games, fine. I pulled out the trash bags she had dumped in my bin and loaded them into the back of my SUV. Then I drove them right back to her house and set them neatly on her front porch, lining them up against her door. I took photos of them sitting there with her house number clearly visible in the frame. Then I got in my car and went to run some errands, feeling petty but satisfied. When I drove past her house an hour later, the bags were gone. I assumed that was the end of it. Surely she got the message. I was wrong. The next Tuesday morning, my trash bin had even more bags in it, 6 this time. I could not believe the audacity. I took photos of everything, pulled the bags out, loaded them in my SUV, and drove them back to her porch. This time I stacked them more prominently, right in front of her door so she would trip over them when she came out. I photographed the whole thing, making sure to capture her address numbers and the contents visible through the clear parts of the bags. This pattern continued for 3 more weeks. Every Monday night or Tuesday morning before trash pickup, Karen would dump her garbage in my bins. Every Tuesday after pickup, I would collect it, photograph it, and return it to her porch with increasingly detailed documentation. I started keeping a log with dates, times, and descriptions of the contents. My photo gallery on my phone became filled with images of trash bags and Karen Crawford's front porch. The 4th week, things escalated. I found a note in my mailbox written in neat, angry handwriting on HOA letterhead. "Mr. Summers, it has been brought to my attention that you are leaving trash and debris on the property of other homeowners in our community. This is a violation of Meadowbrook Hills HOA Covenant Section 7.3, which prohibits unsightly materials on any property visible from the street. You have 48 hours to cease this behavior or face a fine of $250 per violation. Regards, Karen Crawford, HOA President. I read the note 3 times, my blood pressure rising with each pass. She was the HOA president. Of course she was. And she had the nerve to threaten me with fines for returning the trash she had illegally dumped in my bins. The hypocrisy was staggering. I immediately went to my computer and pulled up the HOA covenants and bylaws. I read through every section, taking notes. Section 7.3 did indeed prohibit leaving unsightly materials on properties, but Section 4.8 clearly stated that each homeowner was responsible for their own waste management and prohibited using another resident's trash bins without permission. I had her. I drafted a formal response letter, attaching printed copies of all my photos with dates and times. I documented every instance of Karen dumping trash in my bins, every time I returned it to her property, and cited the specific HOA covenant she was violating. I sent copies via certified mail to Karen directly, to the HOA board's general email, and to the property management company that administered our HOA. 2 days later, I got a phone call from a man named Richard Patel, who introduced himself as the vice president of the HOA board. He sounded tired. "Mr. Summers, I received your documentation regarding the trash situation with Karen Crawford," he said. "I want you to know that I take this seriously, but I need to ask you some questions." "Sure," I said, sitting down at my kitchen table with a notepad. "You claim that Karen has been repeatedly dumping trash in your bins and you have been returning it to her property. Is that correct?" "That is correct. I have photo evidence of everything." "I have reviewed your photos," Richard said. "They are quite thorough. However, Karen is claiming that you have been harassing her by leaving random trash on her porch and that the photos are fabricated or staged." I almost laughed. "Fabricated? You can see the contents of the trash bags in the photos. They match what I photographed in my bins before I removed them. And I have photos of her actually dumping trash in my bins. She claims those photos do not clearly show her face. It is her outfit, her build, and she is walking from the direction of her house back to her house. Who else would it be?" Richard sighed. "Look, I believe you. But Karen is the HOA president, and she is pushing back hard on this. She is threatening to sue both you and the HOA for defamation if we take action against her based on what she calls insufficient evidence." "So, what are you saying?" "She gets to keep dumping trash in my bins and threatening me with fines." "No, I am saying we need more concrete evidence. Can you get a video of her doing it? Something that clearly shows her face and the act of dumping trash in your bins." I thought about it. "Yes, I can do that. I will set up a camera." "Good. In the meantime, I am going to send her a general reminder about the trash bin policy without specifically accusing her of anything. That should buy us some time." After hanging up, I went online and ordered a wireless outdoor security camera with night vision and motion detection. I paid extra for next day shipping. When it arrived, I installed it on the side of my house with a perfect view of where my trash bin sat at the curb. I angled it so it would capture anyone approaching the bins and would clearly show their face if they looked in the general direction of my house. The following Monday night, I made sure the camera was recording and set my bins out at the curb as usual. Then I waited. I checked the camera feed on my phone every few minutes. At 6:30 Tuesday morning, the motion detection alert went off. I grabbed my phone and watched the live feed. There she was. Karen Crawford walked up to my bins carrying 3 bags of trash. She looked around nervously, and for a brief moment, she looked almost directly at the camera. Then she lifted the lid of my trash bin and dumped all 3 bags inside. The video was crystal clear, full color, and showed her face perfectly. She was wearing different clothes this time, jeans and a sweater, but it was undeniably her. I saved the video immediately and made 3 backup copies. Then I watched as the garbage truck came by 20 minutes later and emptied the bins. I let them take everything this time, trash and all. I did not need to return it to her porch anymore. I had what I needed. I sent the video to Richard Patel with a detailed email explaining what it showed. He responded within an hour. This is exactly what we needed. I am calling an emergency HOA board meeting for tomorrow night. You will need to be there to present this evidence formally. I will send you the details. The meeting was held at the community center in our subdivision, a small building near the entrance that was used for HOA gatherings and neighborhood events. I arrived 15 minutes early with my laptop and a USB drive containing all my documentation. The room had a long table at the front where the 5 board members sat, and rows of chairs for residents. Karen was already there, sitting at the center of the board table, looking smug. When the meeting started, there were about a dozen other residents in attendance, probably curious about the drama. Richard called the meeting to order and explained that we were gathered to address a dispute between 2 residents regarding trash bin usage. Karen immediately spoke up. I want to state for the record that Mr. Summers has been harassing me for weeks by leaving garbage on my property and taking photos of my home without my consent. This is stalker behavior, and I feel unsafe in my own neighborhood. Several residents murmured. I felt my face heat up, but I stayed calm. Richard held up a hand. We will hear from both parties. Mr. Summers, can you present your evidence? I stood and connected my laptop to the projector. I walked through everything chronologically, showing photos of the trash in my bins with timestamps, photos of the contents that clearly did not belong to me, photos of me returning the bags to Karen's porch, and screenshots of my detailed log. Then I played the video. The room went silent as everyone watched Karen Crawford clearly and unmistakably dump 3 bags of trash into my bins. When it ended, I played it again, pausing at the frame where her face was most visible. There was no question it was her. This video was taken 6 days ago, I said. I have additional video from this morning showing the same behavior. Karen Crawford has been illegally using my trash bins for weeks, and when I returned her trash to her property, she threatened me with HOA fines and claimed I was harassing her. Karen's face had gone pale, then red. That video is edited, she said, her voice shaking. He clearly manipulated it to make it look like me. I am happy to provide the raw files from the camera for independent verification, I said calmly. They are time-stamped and unedited. One of the other board members, a woman named Susan, spoke up. Karen, why would you do this? We all have adequate trash bins provided by the HOA. Karen's expression shifted through several emotions before settling on defiant. I generate more waste than the standard bins can handle. I tried to request additional bins from the management company months ago, and they denied it. They said I would have to pay an extra fee, which I think is ridiculous considering how much we already pay in HOA dues. So yes, I have been using bins that have extra space. I did not think it mattered since the trash all goes to the same place anyway. It matters because those are not your bins, Richard said firmly. You do not have the right to use another resident's property without permission. And instead of admitting it when Xavier confronted you, you lied about it and then threatened him with fines for returning your own trash to you. I am the president of this HOA, Karen said, her voice rising. "I work hard to keep this community beautiful and functional. I volunteer my time, I enforce the rules, and this is the thanks I get. Being humiliated in front of everyone." "You humiliated yourself," I said, unable to hold back. "You could have just asked me if you could use my bins occasionally. I probably would have said yes. Or you could have paid the fee for extra bins. Instead, you stole space in my bins, lied about it, and tried to turn it around on me." Karen stood abruptly, her chair scraping loudly. "I do not have to sit here and listen to this. I resign from the HOA board effective immediately. You people do not appreciate anything I have done for this community." She grabbed her purse and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The room erupted in conversation. Richard had to bang a gavel several times to restore order. The rest of the meeting was spent discussing what to do next. The board voted unanimously to issue Karen a formal violation notice and a $250 fine for misuse of another resident's property. They also voted to remove her from her position as president, though her resignation had already made that moot. Richard agreed to step up as acting president until the next election. I was satisfied with the outcome, but I knew Karen well enough by now to know it was not over. Sure enough, the next morning I found my car keyed. Long, deep scratches ran along the driver's side from front to back. I was furious but not surprised. I checked my security camera footage, but whoever did it had approached from the other side of my driveway, outside the camera's range. I could not prove it was Karen, but I knew it was. I filed a police report with the Scottsdale Police Department. Officer Martinez came to my house, took photos of the damage, and wrote everything down. When I mentioned my suspicion that it was Karen retaliating for the HOA situation, he looked skeptical but noted it in his report. "You have any proof it was her?" he asked. "No direct proof, but she is the only person who has a motive. Unfortunately, we cannot do anything without evidence. Keep your security cameras running and document anything else that happens." The damage to my car cost me $800 after insurance, which I had to pay out of pocket because of my deductible. I was beyond angry now. I expanded my camera coverage, adding 2 more cameras to cover my entire property, including my driveway and backyard. The next incident happened a week later. I came out to my car one morning to find all 4 tires slashed. The cuts were clean, clearly done with a knife. Again, I checked the cameras. This time I caught something useful. At 2:30 in the morning, a figure dressed in dark clothes and a hood approached my car from the street. The person was careful to keep their face turned away from the cameras, but their build and movement matched Karen. The person slashed the tires quickly and efficiently, then hurried away toward Karen's house. I called Officer Martinez again. This time he took it more seriously, especially when I showed him the video. "That looks like her build, but I cannot see the face," he said, studying the footage. "This is definitely moving toward criminal territory now. Vandalism twice is a pattern. I am going to have a talk with Miss Crawford." 2 days later, Officer Martinez called me back. I spoke with Karen Crawford. She denies everything and says she was home asleep at the time. Without a clear view of her face or other definitive proof, I cannot arrest her, but I warned her that we are investigating and that if anything else happens to your property, she will be the prime suspect. "Did she seem worried?" I asked. "She seemed angry. She actually complained that you are harassing her and suggested I should be investigating you instead. I explained that you are the victim here, not her." I felt a small surge of satisfaction, but mostly I was exhausted. This whole situation had taken over my life. I was spending hours reviewing camera footage, documenting incidents, and dealing with police and insurance companies. I just wanted to stop, Things were quiet for 2 weeks. I started to think maybe the police warning had scared Karen into backing off. Then I came home from a grocery run to find my front door standing open. My heart hammered as I approached cautiously. I called 911 before going inside. The police arrived within minutes. 2 officers cleared the house while I waited outside. When they gave me the all-clear, I went in to assess the damage. The place had been ransacked. Drawers pulled out, cushions thrown off the couch, papers scattered everywhere. But here is what was weird. Nothing seemed to be missing. My laptop was still on my desk. My TV was still mounted on the wall. Even the cash I kept in my bedroom drawer was untouched. "This does not look like a typical burglary," Officer Martinez said when he arrived. He had taken over as the lead on what was now being treated as a harassment case. Usually, thieves go straight for electronics and valuables. This looks more like someone searching for something or trying to send a message. "Karen," I said immediately. "That would be my guess too, but again, we need proof. Let me check your security cameras." We reviewed the footage together. At 1:15 in the afternoon, while I was out, a figure approached my front door. This time, the person wore a surgical mask and a baseball cap pulled low, plus bulky clothes that disguised their shape. They picked my lock, which took them less than 30 seconds, suggesting some skill or practice. They were inside for 23 minutes, then left the same way they came in, pulling the door closed but not locked. "Professional lock-picking, disguise, knows where your cameras are," Officer Martinez mused. "This person planned this carefully." "It has to be Karen," I insisted. "Who else would do this?" I agree it is likely her, but the disguise is good. A defense attorney would argue we cannot definitively identify the person. However, combined with everything else, we are building a stronger case. He looked at me seriously. "I want to set up a sting operation. Are you willing to help?" "Absolutely." "What do you need me to do?" Officer Martinez explained his plan. We would spread word through the neighborhood that I was going out of town for a week for work. I would make a big show of loading luggage into my car and asking neighbors to keep an eye on my place. Then I would actually stay with a friend but keep all my cameras running and monitored. If Karen tried something while she thought I was gone, we would catch her. I thought it was a good plan. The next day, I started setting the stage. I mentioned to several neighbors that I was heading to Seattle for a work conference. I asked the family next door if they could grab my mail. I loaded obvious suitcases into my car in the evening. Then I drove to my friend Marcus's apartment across town and settled in to watch my camera feeds remotely. The first 2 days were uneventful. I started to worry that Karen was not going to take the bait. But on the third night, at 11:45, my motion detector alert went off. I grabbed my phone and watched as Karen Crawford walked right up to my front door, bold as anything, carrying what looked like a can of spray paint. She was not even trying to hide her face this time, probably thinking no one was around to see her. She started spray painting something on my front door. I could not read it from the camera angle, but I immediately called Officer Martinez's direct number. He answered on the second ring. "She is there right now," I said. "Karen is vandalizing my front door. I am 5 minutes away. Keep watching and recording everything." I watched as Karen finished spray painting and then did something I did not expect. She pulled out what looked like a crowbar from a bag she had set down and started trying to pry open my front window. She was actually trying to break in again, more brazenly this time. Then I heard sirens. Karen's head snapped up and she dropped the crowbar. She started to run, but police cars screeched up from both directions, boxing her in. Officer Martinez jumped out of his car and within seconds they had Karen in handcuffs. I watched the whole thing on my camera feed, feeling a rush of relief so intense I almost laughed. Officer Martinez called me 30 minutes later. We got her, red-handed. Spray paint on her hands, paint can and crowbar at the scene, everything on video. She is being charged with criminal trespassing, vandalism, and attempted burglary. Given the pattern of harassment, the prosecutor is taking this seriously. I drove back to my house immediately. The spray paint on my door read "Liar" in big red letters, which was ironic given everything Karen had lied about. Officer Martinez was still there, documenting the scene. She finally confessed to some of it, he said. She admitted to the spray paint tonight and to the break-in last week. She claims she was looking for your camera footage because she wanted to delete evidence of her dumping trash. She is denying the car vandalism, but we are building that case too based on the circumstantial evidence and pattern of behavior. What happens now? I asked. She was booked and will have a bail hearing tomorrow. Given that she is not a flight risk and these are property crimes, she will probably make bail. But she will have a restraining order keeping her away from you and your property. If she violates that, she goes straight to jail. The legal process moved slowly. Karen made bail the next day, and the restraining order was issued. I did not see her around the neighborhood, though I heard through the gossip chain that she was still living in her house. The HOA filed their own lawsuit against her for bringing disrepute to the community and for abusing her position as president. Her house went up for sale 2 weeks later. The criminal trial happened 4 months later, in February. I had to testify, walking through everything that had happened from the first trash incident to the final spray painting and attempted break-in. The prosecutor presented all my video evidence, the police reports, and testimony from Officer Martinez and other witnesses. Karen's defense attorney tried to argue that she had been under extreme stress and that my refusal to let her use my trash bins had been petty and had provoked her into an emotional breakdown. The jury did not buy it. Karen was found guilty on all counts. 2 counts of vandalism for the car incidents, 1 count of criminal trespassing for the break-in where she ransacked my house, 1 count of vandalism, and 1 count of attempted burglary for the spray paint incident. The judge sentenced her to 18 months in jail, with possibility of parole after 9 months, plus restitution for all the damage she had caused. She was also ordered to pay my legal fees and costs associated with the security cameras and repairs. Standing in the courtroom as the sentence was read, I felt a complicated mix of emotions. Relief, definitely. Vindication, absolutely, but also something like pity. Karen had thrown away her reputation, her freedom, and who knows how much money, all because she was too proud and cheap to pay a small fee for an extra trash bin. It was such a stupid, wasteful escalation. After the trial, life slowly returned to normal. Karen's house sold in March to a nice retired couple who introduced themselves properly and gave me a bottle of wine as a welcoming gift. The HOA elected new board members who seemed reasonable and level-headed. Richard Patel stayed on as president, and he did a good job keeping things running smoothly without the drama. I kept my security cameras up, though I stopped obsessively checking them every few hours. The footage had proven invaluable, and I felt safer knowing everything was recorded. I also became something of a minor celebrity in the neighborhood. People I had never met would stop me on walks and tell me they heard about the crazy HOA president situation and wanted to know if the stories were true. I would give them a brief, sanitized version and change the subject. I did not want to be known forever as the guy who had that fight with Karen. My car got repaired, my door got repainted, and my house got rekeyed with better locks. The insurance company actually covered most of it once Karen was convicted and the restitution was ordered. It took months to actually receive any money from Karen, the process going through the courts and her assets being liquidated, but eventually I was made whole financially. The whole experience taught me some valuable lessons. First, document everything. Those photos and videos were the only reason I was taken seriously, and the only reason Karen faced consequences. Second, some people will lie with absolute conviction even when caught red-handed, so you need irrefutable proof. Third, never underestimate how far someone will go when their ego is wounded. Karen could have stopped at any point, could have apologized, could have just paid for extra trash service. Instead, she kept escalating because she could not stand being wrong or losing control. I also learned that HOAs can be a blessing or a curse depending on who is running them. With Karen in charge, the HOA was her personal kingdom where she made up rules and enforced them selectively. With Richard and the new board, it actually functioned the way it was supposed to, maintaining property values and community standards without becoming tyrannical. In June, about a year after the trash incidents first started, I got a letter forwarded from Karen's attorney. It was a handwritten apology from Karen. She wrote that she had a lot of time to think while in jail, that she had been seeing a therapist, and that she realized how badly she had handled everything. She apologized for the trash dumping, for the lies, for the vandalism, and for making my life hell for months. She said she understood if I could never forgive her, but she wanted me to know she was genuinely sorry and was working on herself. I read the letter several times. It seemed sincere, not like the defensive, aggressive Karen I had dealt with before. I thought about responding, but ultimately decided not to. I hoped she really was getting help and making changes, but I did not owe her anything, not even acknowledgement of her apology. I filed the letter away and moved on. Looking back now, the whole thing seems almost absurd. It started with something so petty, trash in a bin, and spiraled into criminal charges, jail time, and thousands of dollars in damages. All because one person thought the rules did not apply to them, and that they could bully their way out of consequences. I still live in Meadowbrook Hills. My house is paid down more now, and I have actually grown to love the neighborhood. The community events are fun, the neighbors are friendly, and the HOA drama has been minimal since Karen left. I still work from home, still take my trash bins to the curb every Monday night, and still check them Tuesday morning after pickup. Old habits die hard. But now when I see my bins sitting there empty and clean after the garbage truck passes, I feel a little surge of satisfaction. They are my bins with my trash, handled properly without drama or conflict. It is such a small thing, but after everything that happened, I do not take it for granted anymore. The neighborhood kids still play in the streets on warm evenings. The landscaping crews still come every Thursday to maintain the common areas. The same joggers run the same routes every morning. Life goes on in Meadowbrook Hills, peaceful and predictable, exactly the way a good neighborhood should be. And somewhere across town, Karen Crawford is presumably rebuilding her life after her release, hopefully having learned that cooperation and honesty work better than deception and vandalism. I do not know what happened to her after she got out of jail, and I do not particularly care. That chapter of my life is closed, and I am happy to leave it that way. These days, when new neighbors move in, someone inevitably tells them the story of the HOA president who went to jail for trash-related crimes. It has become neighborhood legend, probably exaggerated in the retelling. I have heard versions where Karen supposedly dumped toxic waste in my bins, or where I set up some elaborate trap involving fake trash, or where the final confrontation involved a car chase. None of that is true, but I have stopped correcting people. Let them have their stories. The truth is mundane compared to the legends. A woman dumped her trash in my bins. I returned it to her porch. She escalated to vandalism and break-ins. I documented everything. She got caught and faced legal consequences. That is it. No dramatic confrontations, no elaborate schemes, just a straightforward progression from petty annoyance to criminal behavior to justice being served. But I think that is actually what makes the story meaningful, at least to me. It shows that the system can work if you follow the proper steps. Document, report, cooperate with authorities, present evidence, and let the legal process play out. It is not exciting, but it is effective. I also think about how differently things could have gone at so many points. If I had confronted Karen more aggressively that first time, if I had retaliated against her vandalism with vandalism of my own, if I had not installed those cameras, if the police had not taken it seriously, any of those things could have led to a worse outcome, maybe even me facing charges for harassment or assault. Staying calm, following procedures, and letting the evidence speak for itself was the right call, even though it was frustrating at the time. There were moments when I wanted to slash her tires in return, or spray paint her door, or do something equally petty and satisfying. But that would have made me no better than her, and it would have undermined my credibility when the case went to court. So I am proud of how I handled it, even though I wish the whole situation had never happened in the first place. I defended my property rights, stood up to bullying, and saw justice done without compromising my integrity. That matters. And now, more than a year later, I can finally say I have moved past it emotionally. For months after the trial, I was angry whenever I thought about what Karen had put me through. I would replay incidents in my mind, thinking about what I should have said or done differently. But that anger has faded now, replaced by indifference. When I think about Karen Crawford, if I think about her at all, I mostly just feel nothing. She is not worth my mental energy anymore. I have better things to focus on. My career is going well. I got promoted to senior developer last month. I started dating someone I met through a friend, a teacher named Melissa, who thinks the whole trash saga is hilarious and calls me the trash detective as a joke. I've gotten more involved in neighborhood activities, joining the community garden committee and volunteering for the annual block party planning. Life is good in Meadowbrook Hills. The sun shines almost every day in Scottsdale. The desert landscape is beautiful in its stark way, and my little house feels like home in a way my apartment never did. I have good neighbors, a quiet street, and trash bins that contain only my own garbage. It is everything I wanted when I bought this place. Sometimes I wonder what the next challenge will be. Homeownership always brings surprises, and living in an HOA community means there will inevitably be more rules disputes or neighbor conflicts. But I feel ready for whatever comes. I have a proven system now. Stay calm, document everything, follow proper channels, and trust the process. I also have about 200 gigabytes of video footage stored on hard drives in my closet, organized by date and labeled HOA incident evidence. I will probably never look at it again, but I am keeping it just in case. You never know when you might need proof of something. That is one lesson from this whole mess that I will carry with me forever. In disputes, evidence is everything. Your word against someone else's means nothing if they are willing to lie, but video footage does not lie. The security cameras still record 24/7, backing up to cloud storage automatically. The subscription costs me $15 a month, a small price for peace of mind. I check the app maybe once a week now, usually just glancing to make sure everything looks normal. It has become routine rather than obsessive. Last week, I saw on the neighborhood Facebook group that someone on the next street over was complaining about a neighbor who lets their dog poop in other people's yards without picking it up. Several people commented suggesting they set up cameras to catch the person in the act, and someone mentioned my situation with Karen as an example of how documentation leads to resolution. I did not comment on the post, but it felt good to know that something positive came from my experience. Maybe other people learned from what I went through. The HOA itself has been functioning much better under Richard's leadership. They sent out a survey asking residents what improvements they wanted to see, something Karen never did. Based on the responses, they are adding more street lights in the darker areas, organizing quarterly neighborhood social events, and revising some of the more outdated or ridiculous rules. Turns out when you actually listen to the people you are supposed to serve, everyone is happier. I even attended my first HOA board meeting as a regular resident last month, just to see how things were going. It was remarkably boring, which I mean in the best possible way. They discussed budget items, approved some landscaping changes, and handled a noise complaint about a teenager's band practice. Everything was professional and cordial. No drama, no accusations, no one storming out, just adults handling community business like adults. Revolutionary. As I walked home from that meeting under the clear Arizona night sky, I felt grateful. Grateful that the nightmare with Karen was over. Grateful that I lived in a community where the system eventually worked. Grateful for supportive neighbors and competent law enforcement, and a justice system that, while imperfect, ultimately held someone accountable for their actions. The whole experience changed me in subtle ways. I am more assertive now about defending my rights, but also more patient about following proper procedures. I am more trusting of the legal system, having seen it work when I did everything right. I am more cautious about people in positions of authority, knowing how easily that authority can be abused. And I am much more appreciative of normal, boring, drama-free days where nothing happens except the ordinary rhythms of life. My trash bins sit in my garage right now, empty and waiting for next week's garbage day. They are just ordinary green plastic bins with wheels and flip-up lids, the same bins everyone in the neighborhood has. But to me, they represent something more. They represent standing up for what is right, even in small things. They represent the importance of boundaries and the consequences of violating them. They represent a weird, frustrating, ultimately victorious chapter of my life that I am glad is over, but also glad I experienced. Because now I know what I am capable of when pushed. I know I can stay calm under pressure, build a methodical case, and see something through to the end even when it is difficult and time-consuming. Those are good things to know about yourself. And I know that sometimes the most mundane conflicts can escalate into serious situations if not handled properly. Trash in a bin became vandalism, became break-ins, became criminal charges, became jail time. Each step seemed almost inevitable once Karen chose confrontation over cooperation. It is a cautionary tale about ego, pride, and the danger of doubling down on bad decisions. I hope Karen learned from it too. I hope she is somewhere living a better life, making better choices, treating people with the respect she should have shown from the beginning. I bear her no ill will at this point. I just want her to be far away from me, living her own life while I live mine. The sun is setting now over Meadowbrook Hills, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that only the desert can produce. My house is peaceful, my street is quiet, and my trash bins contain only my own garbage. It is such a simple thing, but after everything that happened, I do not take simple things for granted anymore. Sometimes the greatest victory is just being left alone to live your life in peace, with your property respected and your boundaries honored. That is all I ever wanted, and that is exactly what I have now. Tomorrow is Tuesday. The garbage truck will come at 7 in the morning, emptying bins all along Saguaro Drive. My bins will be among them, containing my trash and nothing else. And that, after everything, feels like victory enough.